Hello Pokemon fans, I'm Professor K of the Pokemon Evolutionaries, and today we're going to go over the deck profile from the tournament where I placed second. Now in that tournament I ran a Pyroar, Seismitoad, Mewtwo deck, so I figure with all the regionals that are about to start coming up here, one of them is already passed, we may as well start looking at some more deck profiles once again, just to get people an idea of what they might want to play in the upcoming tournaments and things like that. So let's go ahead and take a look here at this deck. Of course, the main focus is going to be Pyroar, so in order to do that, we've got to run 4 of these Litleo. Now, I do recommend running the 70 HP Litleo from Flashfire just to get that extra 10 HP. Sometimes it can make a big difference, especially when you're talking about something that's sitting on the bench. Could get sniped by something like Landorus or Darkrai or something like that. It can't get hit by 2 of those attacks. It's going to take more than that. So 70 HP is a good number to have. Now, of course, Pyroar needs Litleo, so next, after Litleo, we're going to run 4 Pyroar. Now, we all know what Pyroar does and why it's a big portion of the game right now. That ability, Intimidating Mane, blocks all attacks from all basic Pokemon. So we all know that EX Pokemon are basics, and any other non-EX attacker that is a basic can't touch Pyroar as long as the ability is active, which means the only thing that's going to shut this down is going to be Garbodor. So that's the biggest threat to this deck. Obviously, the main goal of this is just to lock down and avoid being hit by basic Pokemon and, building up Pyroar. He's a very strong attacker, and, Fire has some pretty decent support behind it. Being able to hit for 60, discarded energy to do 30 more damage. You're looking at 90 with a Muscle Band, 100, 110. You can use a few different things to increase the damage and be able to pretty much 2-hit knock out everything in the game. So it's very important to be able to use Pyroar in the right way. Now, to help Pyroar out, there's a couple of Pokemon that we can use to help that lock situation even more. And one of them is going to be Seismitoad EX. Seismitoad EX, for a double colorless energy, uses Quaking Punch, and it prevents your opponent from playing any item cards. So even the ones that are like Stage 2 decks and things like that are going to have a hard time getting going unless they have a middle stage, as long as Seismitoad is using Quaking Punch. There's nothing that, it's not an ability or anything like that, it's just a simple attack, and there's nothing that they can do to stop it once you get going. They're going to have to knock out the Seismitoad or get it out of the active spot and hope that you don't get it back into the active spot before the next turn. But during that turn, they won't be able to play any item cards, so that's huge in this game. So no items, no basic Pokemon. This creates a very good lock situation, and it frustrates a lot of the major decks out there. Now, for a secondary attacker, we do run 2 copies of Mewtwo EX. Mewtwo, again, runs off a double colorless energy, and being able to attack for just that double colorless, and even more, of course, if you want to do more damage, it's just really good. I mean, this deck naturally runs double colorless energy because of Seismitoad, Pyroar. Why not throw 2 Mewtwo in there? It could really be a big clutch attacker and also be a wall as well in the same respect. Being able to hit for that damage adds up in a hurry. Mewtwo EX is always going to be around in this format. So that's it for the Pokemon lineup. That's it. That's everything. Right there. We're talking 12 Pokemon. That's it. Very, very simple. It is a lot like the deck at Nationals. Michael Pramawat being able to run so few Pokemon and do so well with it, but my deck is more consistent than his. A lot of flips and stuff like that, and I just don't believe in that. The more consistent a deck is, the better it's going to do. So to help that consistency out, obviously we need some trainers and support. So my standard lineup is pretty much 3 Juniper here. We've got 3, best draw support in the game, discard your hand, draw fresh 7. I mean, there's really nothing more to it than that. It's very plain and simple. We all know what Professor Juniper does by now, and it's just a great supporter in the game. You just can't do anything without him. Now, granted, eventually we'll be going to Sycamore, but for now, I like my full art Professor Junipers. Also, of course, the next best draw supporter in the game, and also the best for disrupting your opponent, 3 copies of N. N, both opponents shuffle in their hand and draw as many as they have prize cards. In the beginning, it's strong for you and for your opponent as well, actually. It can sometimes help them out more than you. But late game, if you happen to be down in prizes, you will end up coming out ahead a little bit more and maybe putting in something that your opponent did not want to put back into their deck. And This is another deck where you're going to want to have a pretty decent sized bench. You want to have Pyroar built up, ready to go, ready to attack, at any given time. Not to mention your Mewtwo and your Seismitoad as well. Sometimes you want to be careful with these because they can be brought up with a Lysander, so you might want to be a little bit careful how many you bench of these. Typically, I play one Seismitoad per game, sometimes one Mewtwo, and then the rest Pyroar. So, granted, you're going to want to have Pyroar, so you're going to have a bench. You're going to want to run 3 copies of Colress. This can be substituted out for Shauna, but I prefer Colress in this situation. It's a high risk, high reward kind of support, but I don't know, I think it's worthwhile in the end. And also, of course, we're going to have some kind of way of getting up to the active spot what we want, just in case there's a threat to Pyroar or anything else for that matter. So we run 2 copies of Lysander. Automatic Pokemon catcher, just uses your supporter for the game, plain and simple. We all know what Lysander does, and it does it well. Being able to bring up anything that you want off your opponent's bench is an amazing thing in a lot of situations where you might be facing a very bad outcome, and then all of a sudden you make it your best outcome. So, the final supporter that we have here is one that's only exclusive to Fire-type Pokemon. It is definitely only for Fire support. That is 3 copies of Blacksmith. We want to get Fire Energy in the discard pile and use this to bring it back up out of the discard pile and attach it to our Pyroar. So 3 copies of that is more than enough and very, very good. So that is our support lineup. Now the rest of this is going to be items and energy. So let's take a look at what kind of items we have in this kind of a deck. Now, just like any other deck, obviously doing 20 more damage is a very good thing. So we've got 3 copies of Muscle Band. That means everything, EXs, Basics, Stage 1, Stage 2, all take advantage of this and hit for 20 more damage than they normally would when these tool cards are attached to them. Obviously susceptible to Megaphone, but it's always worthwhile to do the extra damage. And sometimes all you need is to lock your opponent into sleep or just get that extra 10 damage. So 3 copies of Hypnotoxic Laser are a good option in this case. I really don't count on them so much for the sleep, but getting the extra 10 damage in between turns and forcing them to have to get out of the active spot is definitely a good thing. So we run 3 copies of those. I don't run the Verbank, mainly like I said, is to get that extra 10 damage and just hope for sleep, but not necessarily rely upon it. We also need to get our Pokemon out, and also we need to find a way to get Fire Energy in the discard pile in a hurry, so we've got 3 copies of Ultra Ball. Discard 2 cards, get a Pokemon out of your deck. Plain and simple. Getting those Fire Energy in the discard pile really helps out your Blacksmith over here and gets you powered up and ready to go really, really fast. Now, to get those Fire Energy, of course, we're going to need to get them out of the deck somehow. What better way than with Professor's Letter? Search your deck for 2 basic energy cards and shuffle your deck. Again, very straightforward, very simple way to get energy out of the deck and into play. So there's that. Sometimes we're going to have problems evolving our Pyroar from a Litleo, so we're going to need to run a couple of copies of Evosoda. Being able to search your deck for the next evolution stage and putting it immediately on there, evolving it for the turn, is a good thing. Especially when we don't have Pyroar in our hands, but we can evolve our Litleo because it's been in play long enough. This will do the job. So 2 copies of Evosoda is more than enough, considering that we have a 4/4 line here. As I told you earlier, Garbodor is a problem for this deck because it will shut off Intimidating Mane as long as there's a tool card attached to it. So what better way to get rid of that than to run 2 copies of Startling Megaphone. Not to mention this will also get rid of all those pesky muscle bands or any other Pokemon tools that might be attached, forces your opponent to get rid of every single one of them. Very good card, very standard in every single deck. And also to get Fire Energy in the discard pile, not only do we have Ultra Ball to do the job, but we also have a copy of Fiery Torch. I only run 1 copy. I don't find 2 extra cards being all that worthwhile. We normally can get Fire Energy in the discard pile with Ultra Ball and Scorching Fang doing the extra damage. We'll get the Fire Energy in the discard pile. So I just run 1 copy, kind of as a filler, and a little bit of extra draw support if we happen to really need it. Our next item cards here are going to be our switching cards. Now, just a plain old switch, for one, gets us out of the active spot, puts something up that we have on the bench that we want. Very good card to have there. And also, our last switching card is going to be an Escape Rope. Forces our opponent to pick a Pokemon off their bench and put it up to the front before we make our decision. So sometimes we can just kind of sit back and act like we're going to do something and maybe not necessarily do that. See what our opponent puts up first. So it's a good way to get out of the active position and still be able to maybe control the situation of a game. And the last item card that we play is our Ace Spec. This is a setup deck. You're going to need to get a lot of things going really fast in a hurry. And what better way to do that than to run a copy of Computer Search. Discard 2 cards, get any card out of the deck that you want. And when we need to get fire energy in the discard pile, this is another good tool for doing that. We can put 2 fire in the discard pile, Computer Search for something, Blacksmith, get them right back out, and attach them immediately. We can power up a Pyroar in 1 turn that way. And the stadium card of choice for this deck is going to be 2 copies of Mountain Ring. In a format where Landorus is a thing, and I've noticed that Darkrai is still around, could possibly do some attacking there. Not necessarily so much. This is mainly for Landorus, just protecting the bench in general. 2 copies of Mountain Ring. Both benches cannot be touched by Pokemon's attacks at all whatsoever. So it's good to protect our Litleo while we're trying to evolve them into Pyroar. So that's always good for that. Set that down there. And finally, our energy count. Our energy count is pretty straightforward and simple. We've got 9 copies of fire energy. In a deck like this, you don't necessarily need a ton of energy. 9, I think, is a really good number for what we do here. It allows us to get enough in the discard pile and not worry about how many we're going to get back, or if we're going to have problems getting it back at all. So we've got 9 copies there, and of course, we've got 4 copies of double colorless energy. So this is good for Mewtwo, it's good for Pyroar, it's good for Seismitoad. You can spread it around, you can put 1 on any of them, and it does the job well. Not to mention, it powers up Pyroar in a way so that we only have to attach 1 fire energy to it per turn to be able to Scorching Fang and then hit for 90 damage that way. So in general, that's the deck in a nutshell. You pretty much see what it all does here, and what makes it work. It's very simple, it's very effective, and it's very consistent. Not many of the fire decks out there have worked so well, but with the addition of Seismitoad, I feel like that this is a contender. Not to mention, I told you, it did win me 2nd place in a tournament, and I feel like that this could be a very good option to consider, especially with all the decks out there that are running big basics. I mean, big basics are never going to go away. They've always been a thing, and they're always going to be a thing in my opinion. So Pyroar works well against that, and not to mention Seismitoad, even against those decks that do evolve. Quaking Punch prevents it from doing so. There's no rare candy. And not to mention no Ultra Ball either, so any item cards at all whatsoever get shut down. Alright guys, that's the deck all together here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to give me a nice like on the thumb down below, and we appreciate your feedback and support as always, so leave a comment down below if you got something to say as well. Not to mention, if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button so you guys get updated whenever we put out new content. Like I said, our main focus is going to start turning more towards the competitive TCG, so you guys will have more content from that as time goes by. So, like I said guys, we appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it, and that's it for today. So, until next time, I'm Professor K for the Pokemon Evolutionaries, and here is the Pyroar Seismitoad Mewtwo deck. Yeah.